This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of June 28th, 2021. And all this month, or going into the second or third week of July, we're going to be talking about cellular signal boosters. And this week, the subject is carrier approval. Some of you might know that in addition to regular FCC approval, that there's a process to get your cell carrier to approve your cell booster. Now, let's talk a little bit about why this is. Prior to 2014, all the major phone carriers, AT&T, Verizon, whatever, all said that you couldn't use a cell phone signal booster with their phones. And, that it would void your warranty to do it and that it was going to blow up the whole system. And they made this whole apocalyptic thing about it. So the FCC brought carriers and cell phone signal boosters together along with their own experts and formulated new rules which came out in 2014. I'm not going to get into the depth of those new rules, but they meant that everybody could work together. Part of that is that carriers would accept sort of approvals from cell phone signal booster makers. There was a process to say, okay, these people who are making good boosters are okay by us. And it was one of those things that's voluntary and at the same time highly recommended. And so today there are a few companies in the United States that do have carrier certified cell phone signal boosters, and all you have to do at that point is install them. There may or may not be a process where you have to inform your carrier about it. I can go into that a little bit in a minute, but the carriers know that the devices that they're talking about will work with their networks. And the interesting thing is that this is different from just the FCC certification process. Anything that puts out any sort of radio emission at all, or even has the capability of putting out a radio emission, has to be FCC certified. For example, like a watch has to be FCC certified because there's a potential that it could have some sort of emission that might bother something else, even though it might not be intentional. But certainly anything that puts out cellular radiation, cordless phones, microwave ovens, for example, all these have to be FCC certified, but they are only certified that they avoid interference with other devices and they act the way they're intended to be put to use. In the case of cell phone signal boosters, they do not mean that the carrier has certified that the cell phone signal booster will work with them. And it's a two-step process, and not every booster maker does it. Who does it? Of the line that Solid Signal sells, Wilson Electronics, which is the parent of WeBoost and Wilson Pro, they do it. SureCall does it. Smooth Talker does it. And that means that if you pick up a cell phone signal booster from Solid Signal with one of those brands, you're going to find they are going to work. They're going to work with the carrier that you have, and it's just going to make sense. There won't be any problems. Now, if you have an unapproved booster, well, does that mean it won't work? No, it doesn't mean it won't work. But what it means is that we do not know. And if you're fine with taking that kind of a risk for a lower price booster, fine. There are plenty of them out there, but I recommend, honestly, that you stay with sort of the trinity of cell booster manufacturers, Wilson, SureCall, and Smooth Talker, when you're looking for a booster for home or office. So let's talk a minute about the idea of registering your cell booster. You're supposed to do it. The 2014 rules say that you're supposed to register your cell booster with your carrier. There's very simple ways of doing it. Or actually, I should back up a second. It says you're supposed to register your cell booster with a carrier. It doesn't necessarily mean your carrier. It probably should, but it doesn't. And that's why a lot of folks in the early days when registration was required, they were registering it through Verizon no matter who they had, because Verizon had the easiest web page to navigate. Now, when it comes to the practical aspects of it, there's really no enforcement of this rule, and carriers have really very little way of knowing whether or not you're doing it. Now, I'm a rule-following kind of guy, and so I'm not going to tell you don't register your cell booster. I'm just saying if you don't, then you're probably in good company with maybe 95% of the people out there or more, and it's very unlikely that cell booster police are going to come to your house and force you to register your cell booster. Folks, cell booster technology is mature. It works with the phone you have now. It will probably work with every phone you have in the next 5 to 10 years. It works with 5G, 4G, 3G, all the Gs that you need to get through your day. And honestly, well, cell boosters are not the cheapest thing in the world, but your average cell booster costs less than a mid-priced cell phone and is going to outlast your next 3 or 4 phones, depending on how often you change phones. It's really a great investment because about 95% of people do suffer from bad cell service during the day, and Wi-Fi calling is just not the only answer out there. There are some issues with Wi-Fi calling. I might do something about that in a future podcast, but not really going to get into it too much today. But just having a clean cell signal is really the best option a lot of the time. Why not? Why not treat yourself to a cell booster at home and think about getting one for the office as well? That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch this podcast. Leave a comment. Always makes me look better to the management. And I will see you all next week on the Solid Signal podcast.